Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. This is your host, Martini, along with the fabulous Becky McNattin. We are glad to have you listening as we live and share stories of mental health.
And what an interesting, I've been thinking the whole last week about our last show.
Yes.
And chiropractic care. And I've been thinking a ton about it and how much it relates to what we're talking about today.
So much connection.
That Tara, self-care is trendy.
I mean, girl, it is.
And today we're dedicating an entire show to the topic. You and I have been asked so many questions about self-care as it relates to mental wellness.
Yep.
We have been sent in all sorts of comments about that. What does it mean? And so what started as a buzzword has moved really into an entire belief system around wellness.
It truly has.
And it literally is an entire industry. I think it's pretty cool that there has been this metamorphosis around self-care and even the use of the word. I don't remember hearing it as a kid.
No.
It maybe existed, but I remember words like pampering yourself or taking care of yourself. But we've moved in this direction of seeing it as important. And I just saw 88% of Americans say they actively practice self-care, which is a lot.
That is a lot.
And according to the Harvard Business Review, the self-care industry is over $11 billion. And when we move to the self-care products, and when we move to the self-care products industry, it's valued at $41.2 billion and keeps growing. We buy a lot of products. We buy a lot of products that supposedly encourage and help with self-care. And this can be anything from, everybody listening, you own a lot of this stuff. Soaps and salts to even stools that make using the bathroom successful.
100%.
And it isn't new. I remember in my neighborhood in the 80s, it felt like every parent had a VHS workout tape.
You know they did, yes.
And it was trendy to do at-home exercise. Like, how many folks had a Nordic track? Like everybody, you were the cool human if you had a Nordic track that actually turned into a little bit of a closet. But now we record sleep cycles, heart rate variability, which we talked about last week too.
Yep.
We have apps to help us focus on our breath and guide us in meditation. We have special journals and essential oils for relaxation and awareness. We even have, I just got one of these things emailed to me the other day, we have kits and calendars to promote self-care, even like
of course we do.
A toolbox. And so it's had me thinking, which I get, listeners, why you've asked us so much about this too. What does this really mean?
Right. It is, like you said, is a buzzword, has turned into something more like a movement.
Yeah.
But do we really know what it means?
Yeah. And it's had me wondering, do these things help us truly care for ourselves, or are they anxious responses to our endless quest for something we don't have? Data says that rates of anxiety continue to increase. And in some ways, they've never been higher for certain demographics. We've talked about this on the show. So it seems a little strange that in a time where we are spending extraordinary amounts on self-care and products, that we aren't walking beings of care. How are we not also simultaneously the most cared for generation?
Because we should be.
We should be.
Yes.
If those things are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Right. Yep.
And it makes me think about, is anxiety or stress, as we talked about last week, just another thing that we have come to believe we have to work on? And if it's a chore or a task, is this self-care?
Is this self-care?
What do you think?
It's a great question. Well, I think that, first of all, I think it's almost cyclical in that, and a few episodes back when we discussed advertisements and ways they persuade people, in some of those ways, they're showing you what you're lacking and what you don't have. Therefore, I need it. And so for me, I think the anxiety comes into play of, oh my gosh, I need that as a form of self-care. Oh my gosh, I need that product. I need that thing that plays into those anxieties. Oh, but wait, I'm not seeing the changes I should.
Yeah.
So there goes that cycle.
Right.
Now, the piece of it truly being self-care, I don't see those things as self-care because they're generating anxiety.
Fascinating topic. We're going to dive into it a lot, the whole show.
So excited.
Right now, we're going to take a short commercial break, but stay tuned as we dive into the trendiness of self-care and then beyond that, what it truly is. Thanks for listening. We'll be back in just a moment.
Welcome back to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. I am Tara Martini, along with the oh-so-amazing Becky McNattin. Let's dive right back into a massive, amazing discussion on the huge industry of self-care.
Yeah, and so many things to think about here. But what I first wanted to tackle, Tara, was the difference between self-care and self-improvement. And
such important terms, and a need for a distinction between the two.
Yeah, and if you're listening at home, and just even me saying the difference between self-care and self-improvement, people, I am with you. Because I think we confuse these all the time, or we intertwine them.
Yep.
So self-care is the act of engaging in activities that help us maintain overall health and well-being. This is intentional action. So everybody, it's intentional action to fulfill or respond to our needs. It's deliberate, it's thoughtful. It means we're prioritizing what we've assessed as our needs, and then we're responding to them. So we've prioritized the need and responding to them. And not only does this act of self-care or acts of self-care lower stress, but they improve our mood. And what's really interesting that I believe, as you hear this, even Tara, you'll agree with us, but they improve our self-confidence and self-esteem because we're actively and deliberately, with intention, telling ourselves that we matter.
We matter.
We matter. We're making space for that. It is us creating relationship with ourselves. And if you're listening, I want you to hear that. It is us creating relationships with ourselves when we are engaging in self-care.
To me, I also see it as we are nurturing ourselves.
Yes.
In a soft, kind way.
Absolutely. And self-improvement, which is highly correlated and absolutely can complement self-care.
For sure.
Is action directed toward or directed at expansive goals. So these are areas of our life we want to add to or alter with that focused energy.
Okay.
And so, as I said, self-care and self-improvement can complement one another, but they are different. And it has me thinking, as I'm a perpetual wonderer, everyone, you've learned that about me. I've wondered if marketing has gotten us thinking that they're the same. That if we feel tired or worn out, there's a problem we need to solve. And so if you are experiencing something, that is a space for self-improvement, that we need to improve our ability to cope with stressors or challenges.
Yep.
And so we kind of intertwine self-care as self-improvement, that we're doing something wrong if we have a need that we need to address. What would you say to that, Tara?
I think exactly what you said, as far as it is. I think there are several industries that we are inundated with that message of we are lacking something, so we must take action and do something to kind of fill in those pieces or those areas of weakness. In that it is, to me, the idea is, but we can be whole ourselves and still work to improve ourselves, right? There doesn't mean that there's an absence of something in order to self-improve. And I think that is important, in that we are not missing something. We are not lacking something. We are simply a whole being. And then
it's a really good point. And so also when...
But advertisements don't like that.
Right. And data suggests right now that we're quick to discard self-care. We're actually quick to really toss it aside. And that was so interesting to me because we spend so much time and money on it. Billions, literally billions of dollars. And so why do you think this is? What do you think is behind how easy it is for us to toss it aside?
I think we toss it aside so quickly because we are a country that needs that instant gratification and results. So therefore, let's say we're looking at a face product or some product that's going to make our body feel better, like you said earlier. If we don't get the results that we seek in a short amount of time, I think we literally and figuratively toss it out.
We move on quick.
Yep. Now, producers of this love that we consume in this way because then we discard it. Well, we already spent the money, and now we've moved on emotionally to seeking out something else.
We need a new kit.
Right.
Or new oil. Or
Exactly. But not, and it's something we've talked about off air, but not, God forbid, we find that sense of self-care or self-improvement in something that's free, that we're already doing. But we look at it, it has to have that monetary value. And that's what's needed to drive this industry.
Yeah. Well, a couple things I was thinking about as you were talking in terms of tossing aside. I wondered about the role of guilt in prioritizing our own needs. That comes with it feels like it comes with a cost of self-criticality on, should I be doing this or I shouldn't be doing this, that other people's needs or this maybe puts a burden on other people if I'm responding to what I need right now.
Right.
I also think that if we're really honest with ourselves, we judge when sometimes people prioritize self-care.
100% we judge. Humans judge.
Yeah. And so that perceived judgment of, if I tell people, you know what, I actually don't have any plans tonight, but I'm not going to go to this thing, that we wonder about what people will think or what they'll say, and so we don't do it. And then I've been thinking about this. It's sort of a badge of honor in suffering. Our culture loves to talk about grit.
Yes, particularly when it comes to motherhood.
Yeah, and this enduring despite would make it really hard to sustain self-care practices. So maybe even if we engage in something that causes some re-energizing, we're like, okay, I'm good to go. I'm re-energized now. That we would push that aside because there's something odd for us. I did this thing and I had no energy to do it.
I was exhausted.
Yeah. Well, yes. It's that kind of hearing from...
We become a martyr.
We think about our grandparents saying, like, I walked to school uphill both ways with no shoes on, that there's something that it says about our capacity to get through that it doesn't feel... It doesn't have the same ring to it. Right. And so I think those are all at play when we're talking about self-care and maybe the relationship that we have with it. And you and I talk about, speaking of relationship, you and I talk about all the time on the show, I think every single week.
Yeah.
We talk about connection and relationship. And you just said it actually at the beginning of the show, that every relationship needs nurture. You were talking about that self-care is nurture. So we definitely align with that viewpoint of self-care would be nurture. Yep. And I definitely believe that it does. Every relationship needs nurture. But what about nurturing the relationship with ourselves individually? To me, this is what self-care is. Relationships with ourselves. And if I think about, if I never invested energy in my connections with other people, there literally wouldn't be a relationship.
Right.
It wouldn't exist. So what of a self-connection?
Girl.
Why isn't it considered that? Because in part, one of the things that I've thought about and why it's easy to toss aside is because somebody else has told us what our problem is. If we don't have a relationship with ourselves to even know, how do we respond to our own need? How do we nurture that relationship? Somebody else is saying, well, buy this thing.
Well, right. And
what if that isn't what we needed?
And it's also, it could be, well, what if that isn't what we needed? But it's also, to be honest, and we have touched on this before, but we live in a society where we as women, if we may have an idea of, I'm going to do some kind of self-care, but then that gets tossed off the list when our children need something, right? Or a relative or a neighbor or something at work. Oh, well, I should be doing this instead. So you choose whatever it is.
Yeah.
It never is really a true priority. And it's the first thing that goes, right? It's not a work-related thing or family thing. It's that self-care piece. And it's because it's ingrained in us in that we put ourselves last and we put everyone above us. Well, how can we contribute to self-care if we don't take any time at all?
Yeah. And what makes me think about, would it be easier, or if we worded it as self-connection, that I need to nurture the relationship with me.
Yes.
I even need to know what that relationship is.
Yeah.
I need to tune into what are my needs and know that they are there. And that, as you said really beautifully a couple minutes ago, maybe I'm already doing some things that do nurture that relationship. I'm not seeing it that way, though.
Right.
because it is possible. And I want to talk about the messages that we receive about self-care. Mm-hmm. So what was modeled for you around it? Because messages come externally. So in your life, Tara, what's been modeled for you around self-care?
So growing up, I would say I grew up in an environment where what I said was, you know, your role is to care for others and things like that, in that it was family was the priority, right? And like the connection piece and relationship. But it wasn't really, because I think the time period, right? Like it wasn't in 2020, you know, it was in the 80s, of the idea of caring for yourself wasn't even a thing. Like I think back to my mom. She is this statuesque, beautiful, natural woman who a day in her life, she's never worn makeup or dyed her hair, you know, in that I never saw that modeled, and I never saw the self-care modeled, right? So I grew up in that where you just did the basics, right? And you were good to go. And I think we did things like my mom has always loved to be in the garden and doing her flowers and things like that. And she continues to do that. I never thought of it until adulthood, where I'm like, but that was her self-care.
Totally was herself. That was how she nurtured relationship with her.
Yes, and it didn't look like getting her hair done at the salon when we were little, or wearing layers upon layers of makeup, or the latest like anti-wrinkle cream or whatever. She was a natural, beautiful woman who cared for herself in a way that related to nature and being outside. And that was her self-care. And so it really, I've been one of those people where self-care doesn't have to have this stereotypical look to it. Self-care can be provided in different facets, whether it's nature, different things like that, creativity. But that's how it was modeled for me.
Yeah, you have me thinking about...
in an atypical way, I would say.
Probably lots of people receive messages, and I think about what I also received as modeling around self-care, was that the words weren't used, as we mentioned.
No, I mean, they just weren't words we used.
It wasn't ahead of time people saying, I'm going to do some self-care and go on a walk. It was just, I'm going on a walk. But I think a lot of the modeling around self-care is what a nice to have that is. How great that would be, as almost it's relegated to luxury.
For sure.
That it isn't that amazing that you can self-care.
You can do it, yes.
And so it isn't that self-care couldn't be some of those luxurious things. I think about the word indulgent, that a day at, I guess women often say like a day at a spa.
Yes.
That could be self-care, but it doesn't need to be.
It doesn't need to be, but I think in our age group or our demographic, that was the definition. I think back then, not to speak for my mom, but I bet that's probably what she defined self-care as: getting a massage, going to the spa. And those were very indulgent things that she would never think of doing.
Right, a vacation. You know, something that feels kind of big, that it is, well, wouldn't that be fancy? Yep. And if only there were time and resources to do that thing. And that maybe it was even then like a thing we planned for that was very once in a while. It was unusual. And it was not part of daily lived experience. And so I can see then how, if that's what's modeled for us, that we would conceptualize it as a kind of a nice to have. And then nice to haves often are the things we don't choose to respond to on a regular basis.
Right. Yep.
And, you know, I think often self-care is intermixed with selfish. That
yes, it is.
Prioritizing self now. Yes, prioritizing self is wrong or bad. That makes you a selfish human. And sometimes we the way we judge people is kind of with that in mind.
Oh, and we do 100%. I'd love to give an example from off the air that we were recently just talking with a table of adult women, and it was around Mother's Day. And remember, we were talking about how moms secretly would love a weekend to literally just go away for the weekend and do nothing. Do nothing. But the greatest thing that stops us is because that sounds selfish, and that we should be spending it with our children, right? Or our family or our own mother, in that is self-care equals selfish.
Yeah. And we need to work on our reconceptualization, maybe reclaiming the word self-care. If you want to use self-connection, that might be what I choose to use going forward. But reclaiming that word, that self-care doesn't mean selfish.
No, it doesn't. But we have been trained and educated in that is the equivalent.
And I want to go over types of self-care for a couple of reasons. One, to talk about how expansive self-care can be, because it is beyond luxury. It is beyond pampering. And also to help listeners think through, what are you already doing? So as you and I are talking through types of self-care here, what are you already doing that is self-care?
And I think this will help people realize, oh, I am doing some self-care that I didn't know until Becky and Tara said it.
And the messaging you send to yourself, as you might see yourself in some of the things on this list, that you're proud that you do it.
Yes.
That you're proud that you do it. So in terms of types of self-care, we have physical self-care. This is like what we eat. This is exercise. And I don't necessarily mean at a gym. This is like walking. Okay. This is moving our body, avoiding staring at screens, taking breaks from staring at screens, drinking water, even getting medical care. So really our physical bodies.
Right.
And we spent a lot of time talking about chiropractic care last week. That would fall a lot into this realm.
Yes, that would be physical,
of responding to those physical needs. We have psychological self-care, which is cognitive and mental clarity by stimulating our minds. And this can happen all sorts of ways. Reading something, practicing a skill. Setting a goal about something, even solving puzzles, mindfulness, even positive thinking, practicing positive thinking, like a mantra, affirmation statements.
Well, and I think the two of us, I think we're quite good at this category, this type of self-care, in that we are just lifelong learners by heart. In that, or by nature, that we're always seeking out, whether it's conferences or yet another degree or something, in that we love the idea of learning, which I think is one of the reasons we were so delighted last episode, is that you and I were sitting there as the students, just taking in and absorbing all this new knowledge. And though people, I think, need to understand what that's doing, one, it's enjoyable for us and for many people, but two, what that's doing also to go back to your physical health, right? And for your brain development and things like that, in that all those things you're doing and having those goals, they're a beautiful way to care for yourself.
They're a huge way to care for yourself. And kind of an offshoot of that psychological is emotional self-care. And this is really a relationship with our emotions and inner experience. The dialogue that happens inside of us all day long, knowing how you feel. And we talk often on the show about, there's probably a lot of people listening, a lot of us even through the day, that don't know how we feel. We're not making space in our day to even assess that. So let alone responding with self-compassion. And so things like compassionate voices to ourselves, processing feelings, doing activities that promote energizing emotions like joy. Setting boundaries to protect your energy.
Boundaries are a beautiful thing.
Crying. Allowing that to happen, and then, maybe using those affirmations that would be psychological self-care and saying those to yourself when you notice a certain emotion. We have social self-care, which is nurturing connection and relationships outside of ourselves.
Well, and I think this is one, I think naturally a lot of people go, ooh, I do that, right? It's that intentional connection time with friends, whether it's happy hour or lunch or whatever it is, but intentionally creating that time for connection.
And self-care in this way is being part of interaction and then telling ourselves, oh my gosh, this really is caring for me. I'm caring for myself while doing this, with neighborhood, community, forming even new friendships, limiting time with negative people. Which is a huge part of our social self-care, professional self-care. And we talk about I would say in the self-care realm, people will integrate professional self-care much more often because we use the term work-life balance.
I would agree. Yeah. All the
lot.
time. Yep.
And so people will say, I need a break from this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I need work-life balance. So this might be something that people are a little more familiar with on being inspired by career and job development. You and I just talked about this might be like a training. It might be signing up for something that stimulates you psychologically also, but gets you excited again about whatever you're doing or expanding a skill. And even organized workspace is professional self-care.
I mean, that's one of my favorite things to do regarding self-care as far as the professional environment.
And then we have environmental self-care,
which is
that is literally
right up my alley.
Our physical surroundings. Yeah. And spaces that are clean, keeping organized living space. This would be your mom spending time in nature.
Yep.
That was probably a huge part of her self-care language was this environmental self-care, that making environmentally minded choices, perhaps in the extraordinary traveling to change the scenery in our lives. But that doesn't necessarily mean traveling outside of our, even where we live. We could travel on a new walk.
Yep.
We could try a new path. Yep. We could drive to a new park.
Yep.
Exploring new places, decluttering our closets. We have spiritual self-care, which is really beyond religious beliefs. It's focusing on connection with our inner self. Things like gratitude, maybe meditation, exploring our beliefs and values. If we just think about our beliefs and values, that is self-care, everyone. Things like attending spaces of worship or prayer, if religion aligns with your belief system, if you align with a specific religion, but things like breath work and even self-reflection are deeply spiritual forms.
I love that.
Of creating a relationship with ourselves. We have financial self-care, which is budgeting, living within our means, making informed financial decisions, and recreational self-care, which I do think lots of us think of as self-care.
I think so too. I think the recreational and then that social piece are two big ones.
Where this is taking time to have fun. Participating in things that bring us joy and playfulness. Games, hobbies, anything creative. And so if you're listening and saying, all right, self-care, thoughts about self-care, types of self-care, I want you to hear me when I ask you 3 questions.
Oh.
Do you need self-care is my main question.
Okay.
Do you need self-care? I'm going to ask you, listeners, can you name 5 things that bring you relaxation and joy? 5 things. Can you name them? Number 2, when was the last time you did any of them? Any of those 5 things?
Well, she got you there, folks. Because you're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, wait, wah, wah.
I know 5. And the last one, are you physically, emotionally, or mentally drained? And what did you do to respond to any of those feelings? So these are just things to think about as you're sitting listening to the show today.
Great questions.
Very probably, I'm just going to lump everybody into a bucket together.
Yep.
Even though 88% of us are practicing self-care, I do think we discard this and then pick it up and discard it and pick it up. So you have likely been neglecting and caring for well-being of you, which is required. Impact of not engaging in self-care is prolonged stress and has impact on our bodies. And we spent the whole show talking about that last week. Mental and emotional and physical fatigue is almost certain. And so, Tara, really quick, what would you say to anyone who might be listening and thinking right now, they have neglected their self-needs?
Which I think is a lot of people. Going back to what I touched on earlier, that idea of, because it is something I think we neglect naturally, particularly as women, because we just take it off the list so quickly, right? The importance of, but if we neglect our self-needs, it's interesting because we took it off the list because, I need to be a good mom or wife or friend or whatever. So I'm not going to do the self-care. But reframe it and think, if I do that self-care, then I'll be a better mom, wife, sister, friend, coworker.
Yeah, I think often it probably gets discarded because of efficiency.
Yes.
And time. And we need to think about, if I don't do this,
right?
Or as you said, I am showing up as my truest self, my best self with what I have when I'm actively nurturing. As we go back to any relationship we don't nurture, we don't have.
No, we don't have. And how can we expect to have it if we're not nurturing it?
Right.
And then also it leads to things like we talked about a couple episodes ago, burnout.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
If we don't actively engage in self-care, we're going to start to notice the symptoms of burnout. And it's something that's preventable.
Yeah. And so if you're listening, and I'm right there with you, I'm not good at self-care.
Oh, girl, me either.
This is not my forte.
Yep.
So I'm doing a personal call out during the show to me on what do we do? That this self-care industry might be worth billions of dollars, but self-care doesn't have to cost anything.
No,
relationship doesn't have to. And that we all have different self-care needs because we're literally all individuals. So my first thought in what can we all do is starting small. Don't seek out the extraordinary, because that feels like another to-do. When anxiety or stress is another task or chore, we're already going to feel more stressed about de-stressing.
Well, yeah, you're going to feel stressed about it. But then also, if you create this ginormous thing that you're going to do, then it turns into something you may not achieve.
Yes, right. And so it's already there.
Yep.
My first thought is in terms of start small, it's already there. I promise you don't need to add in anything amazing. So think about, what is one thing that brings you joy? And what is one way you can include that in your week ahead? Take 1 minute and notice your breath. Don't even change it. Just notice it. Clean a living space. And most of us are picking up at some point in our week. And then, this is the point that's self-care, everybody. I want you to tell yourself how great it looks and tell yourself you're awesome.
Yes.
Celebrate the success.
Sit in that space.
Yes.
How often do we clean a room and go, oh, yep, that's done, and then you move into the next?
Yes.
Physically.
Yes.
Sit your rear end on that floor. Take a look at your surroundings and sit. And
I love that.
Thank yourself for having the capacity to do it.
Yep.
And be proud of yourself.
Yep. Cook a new food you've wanted to try.
Love that.
If you're going to make dinner, cook a new food.
Yep.
Take a nap and then tell 3 people how proud of you are of yourself that you did that thing.
I love that.
That's being in the moment. That's saying,
yes.
I am owed that.
Yep.
I am owed that. Or schedule time with a friend and realize that as you're doing it with intention, you did that because you're seeking self-care. It's really important to connect. You're not adding another thing onto the to-do list. You're with intention responding to your needs. So I think about then creating a self-care tradition and stuff we can do. Go to bed every single night. I know this sounds kind of corny, but tell yourself how much of a rock star you were that day.
Love that idea.
This literally is creating a relationship with ourselves of noticing what we're doing and allowing ourselves to be in the moment of noticing.
And when you say rock star, it doesn't have to be this monumental thing you achieved. It can simply be getting through the day. So I think it's just so important to acknowledge.
Yes.
Like, you can be a rock star because, girl, I nailed that drive home picking my kid up from school and whatever. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or a big thing maybe, hey, I was a rock star because I nailed that presentation, you know, this morning. It can simply just be something you do.
I showed up and smiled at that coworker that I do not like at all.
Or I just showed up.
Yes.
I just showed up.
Right. In terms of self-care tradition, wake up in the morning and turn on a song you love. And then let yourself just listen to the song. Set an appointment with yourself. I heard this from someone recently that they do this every morning. They come up with something from the previous day and say, tomorrow, that's my appointment with me. I'm going to talk about it with myself.
I love that.
Pattern your week with something true to you. I literally do this, so I'm going to reframe actually that this is self-care. I have Flannel Friday in the fall and winter. I actually wear a flannel to work every Friday,
folks.
So I call it Flannel Friday because I love buffalo plaid. It makes me happy.
Yep.
And I was not thinking about that as self-care, but I'm going to now because
I never did either.
I am responding to, I feel different in wearing my Flannel Friday. And we have a coworker who does this similarly with Jersey Fridays. She's a huge football fan and gets herself excited for the weekend game by wearing her jersey to work every Friday. That is self-care.
It is self-care, and it reminds us just because we're adults doesn't mean we can't have fun, right? We started a trend that was short-lived about wearing fancy shoes on Monday.
Yep.
And I believe when we were sharing each other's in our staff meeting, it was like we turned into little kids. Like, oh, those are so pretty. Right. Oh, my gosh. And would I have ever worn those shoes, like thought to pick them out of my closet? But why not?
Right.
Why are we not doing these things?
And patterning
and
your week
self-care.
That you can choose a day and you're going to say, that's a tradition I have.
Yep.
we can develop accountability partners. And you and I, in our friendship with each other, are often accountability partners. And what do I mean by that? People who will support you in who you want to be. Who are the people who will offer that and share your commitment to you with you? So you can say, okay, here's what I really want to do. I want to set up an appointment with myself every day. Or here's what I want to do, accountability partner. I want to start to have a weekly tradition of something. And that person will hold you accountable to that thing.
Love it.
They will say, hey, you've brought them in now. And they'll say, hey, have you done that thing? Have you done that thing? And tell them what they can do to make sure that you start small and keep going. How can they make this a sustainable and maintainable plan?
And sometimes that's difficult to do on your own. So I think what you just said is so key. Is it is an easy and amazing thing you can do for yourself is to have that accountability coach or partner.
Well, so often when we've brought something outside of ourselves, we make it real in a way that now we have to kind of own it differently. So if we're saying to other people who can help be that sense of support, we're making it real. And if we're truly committed to this thing, and to not just pick it up and then set it down, we need to have people in our life who are going to help us make it happen.
We do. And it's one of those, I work with so many teenagers, and we will set a goal, and I will make them, not make them, but I will share with them, like, all right, you know what a great idea is? To share with mom and dad what that goal is, because you're more likely to achieve it. Saying it out loud is a part of it. But it's also that if you just keep it to yourself, particularly as a teenager, what's the likelihood you're going to achieve it? But if you tell them, then they can motivate you and be your cheerleader.
Right. And if we're talking about self-care as connection to the relationship with us, with ourselves, ask yourself some questions. So self-care is curiosity. And if we don't know, if it's a relationship with us and we don't know what the relationship needs, start with a question. You and I have talked about this all the time in relationship. Rather than come in with an answer, ask a question first. Self-care is not rooted in changing us. It is rooted in nurturing us. That's the difference between self-improvement and self-care. It's not rooted in changing, it's rooted in nurture. And so how will we know how to nurture if we do not know what we need and what's going on with us? So if we really want to care for ourselves, we need to know ourselves. Ask yourself a question every day. I'm a perpetual question asker. So think, and you can do this as you're driving in the car. You can do this as you're shopping in a store. Think like, what food do I love right now? Or what makes me laugh? Or what is a value that's really important to me? And you can even go back and look at, think about our list that we just went through on types of self-care. Ask yourself some questions about that, and not a question around, why didn't you do that?
Right.
Or do you think you should have done that instead? Not judgmental questions, but curious and inquisitive questions around anything that helps you know you better. What are you thinking, Tara?
I love that, and I think it shifts it from a question that is grounded in shame to something that promotes that self-care piece. I was just thinking, because we always find creative ways to ask our clients, like, how we're doing, instead of saying, how are you doing?
Yes.
And my favorite latest one that I hope you steal is describe yourself as a pasta. And the first time, they're like, what? What does that mean? And I was like, well, are you like an anxious angel hair? Are you like a limpy, overdone macaroni noodle? Like,
I love that.
Are you al dente, kind of firm and whatever? And you can ask yourself those questions.
Absolutely.
Rather than, how am I doing today? Turn it into a fun thing. Like, I'm a weather reporter. How would I say my weather is today?
Yes.
Right? What kind of pasta am I? Think of fun little things as adults and for kids. That it works for everybody.
Well, you bring up such a great point that any of the questions that you may be asking other people through the day of like, what was fun today? Or what made today cool? You can ask you.
Yes.
You can ask you. And actually, we ought to be doing that to develop relationship with ourselves.
Well, and why don't we? We're awful.
We will now.
We are.
We will now.
Starting today.
Yes, so much to think about here. We're going to head to a commercial break. But when we come back, we're going to talk through all of your listener questions about moving self-care into daily life and integrating it into what our daily tasks
So
are.
important.
Feels Out Loud will process your thoughts and questions in just a moment.
You gotta find your people in a world full of strangers. You don't know who to trust. All you see is danger, trying to find what you lost.
We are back again with Feels Out Loud, and this part of the show is where we talk through questions from you all, our beautiful listeners. If you have a question related to mental wellness, sharing feelings, or our topics for each week that you would like us to process through, please visit our website at becomingtogethermn.com and find the Feels Out Loud page to submit a question directly. Or email us at contact@becomingtogethermn.com. We truly do want to hear from you and what you are wondering about.
And we've had many inquiries about self-care. You all have a lot of thoughts about self-care.
Well, no wonder people are spending billions. You know.
And probably this is not a one and done show because there's a lot to explore here around what self-care means and how it looks. But we had a person who said, at work, we talk about self-care. Awesome, which is great. This person says it's great. But how could we introduce this in the workplace more than talking about it? We seem a little lost on how to support one another.
So, I think a lot of people can relate to this.
Yeah, and I think that there are people who are talking about the concept at work and they're saying maybe how it's lacking or they wish they could. Or so I hear this listener saying, so what can we actually do? And I would say back to this listener, well, think about that accountability partner piece. Ask each other, move beyond commiserating about the lack of self-care.
Yes.
Or how you would love to find time or how that's a luxury for another moment. But be accountability partners to each other. So celebrate what others are doing in their lives to prioritize their needs. Start asking each other questions about how they're doing that. And so much of our struggle with self-care is in the relationship that we have with guilt or rumination about what other people are thinking about it. So start to turn your workplace into a space of celebrating that people are prioritizing their own needs.
Yes.
That will start to change the dialogue at work beyond, oh, it would be great to do that, to, I'm so glad you did.
And you'll see the energy shift. And it's that idea of there are little things you can do too as well throughout the day that are self-care. For example, don't sit at your computer and eat your lunch. Be intentional and present and take and grab a coworker or two and have lunch together. It's self-care. You're taking a step away and taking a break. It's little things like that that are truly self-caring and will make a difference on then how your attitude and how things are handled the rest of the day.
Start meetings with a joke.
Yes.
Make people laugh. Maybe even start meetings with 1 minute of breathing. I know that'll feel weird at the beginning, but it does help.
Yep.
Another listener said, my whole life is so focused on other people that I don't even know what my needs are.
I mean, it says every mom. And
so many adults are living with this. I don't even know what my needs are. I don't think I even know what I enjoy. And I have no clue where to start on responding to my needs. I don't have even a practice with identifying what they are. Thoughts on what I can do? And I would say, hey, you, listener, thank you for bringing this up, because you and so many people of all ages out there resonate with this. I don't know what the relationship with me looks like. I wouldn't even know where to start with self-care because I don't know what my self needs even are. So I would say a place to start with this is notice. Ask some questions, just like we would do with anything we're learning. Anything I've learned for the first time, I don't show up and say, well, this is exactly how I do it.
Right.
I'm going to maybe look to other people who I see that might do a thing.
Yep.
Start asking yourself some questions. And when I say notice, I would say, notice some of the questions you're asking to other people in your day.
Yep.
And as you and I said in the last segment, start just asking yourself those. You're going to find out some information about the relationship with you by asking some of the same questions that you ask other people in forming and nurturing a relationship with them. I really think that will happen. And so if you do that even for a week, if you say every day I'm going to ask myself a couple of questions, you're going to know information in a week that you didn't know today. So start this today and then see what you know even 1 week from now.
It can be profound.
Wow. We're at the end of our show already.
We need like 3 more.
Thank you for listening this morning, everyone. This has been an awesome discussion. Join us next week as we are going to talk about all things travel anxiety and how to cope with this. And in the week ahead, be kind to yourself. Remember that connection fosters wellness, and your voice is one the world around you needs to hear. Share yourselves, friends.
Some don't